So, but beyond the courtroom, the heat is now squarely on the National Prosecuting Authority, in particular, Advocate Shamila Batohi. And I said this when Omotoso was first acquitted, that should Shamila fall on her sword? Calls are growing louder for her resignation. Political commentator Ayanda Sishi-Wigzell joins us on the line, whether Batohi should step down. Ayanda, good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to all of the Power FM listeners as well.
Thank you so much, Ayanda, for making time this morning. We truly appreciate that. Let's get straight into it. I mean, there's been calls. Is it fair for us, for people, to start calling for Shamila Batohi to fall on her sword after all this, and not only the Omotoso case, but many others?
I think that it is a fair criticism to say that the NPA really, for lack of a better word, messed up this case with Omotoso. And it is a fair criticism that has been that has been lauded over the NPA, that they did not conduct themselves to the best of their ability. And now, does this mean that the National Director of Public Prosecutions needs to fall on her sword? I am unfortunately going to leave that to the people to decide. But this is what I'd want to put forward: is that in this country, we know that the issue of gender-based violence and sexual assault, and the ways in which it is reported, the ways in which it is investigated from the inception of reporting. In fact, even it goes forward and it goes even past reporting. The ways in which our society is based is actually not safe. And the people who are responsible to make sure that our society remains safe, to make sure that those who are harmed have access to justice, I think that there needs to be a rehaul of that. And that is what the MPs were talking about on Friday when they were calling for Shamila Batohi to actually fall on her sword. What I was witnessing from the MPs on Friday, which is very interesting to me, was that there was a lot of blame going around instead of them actually reflecting on how they, as MPs, have contributed to the ways in which society looks like today, the ways in which men actually interact with women, the ways in which sexual assault is so fragrant in this country in and of itself, because the prosecutor did mention that our prosecutors are very good at prosecuting cases. They know how to do this. And she's not lying about the statistics. It's just that, unfortunately, this case, the statistics are going to pale in comparison because of the fact that the spotlight on this case, and they lost this case that was in the public eye, it is going to detract, and it's going to make sure that people actually don't go and report, and they lose trust in the NPA. That's just that is a thing that will happen, because time and time again we are hearing about the failures of prosecuting people who are charged with sexual assault, the failures of the parole system, where people who are let out on parole are going to then re-offend in the communities that they come from. So this is not only a Shamila Batohi problem, but what I see it as, it is a justice cluster problem as a whole. The justice cluster not only includes the NPA, it includes the police. It also includes correctional services as well. So this is a holistic issue that we are currently seeing right now. So I do not want to pinpoint it to only just specifically the National Prosecuting Authority. This is a police issue as well. This is an MP issue as well. And they're also shirking responsibility. So everybody should fall on their sword if the NPA has to fall on their sword as well.
Is it, Ayanda, a question of incompetence? And I mean, if you listen to the judge thoroughly in that case, Omotoso was basically at pains to say that you failed the victims. The prosecutor failed the victims, right?
Absolutely.
And that also brings in that question that, as I said, in many other cases, we've seen something similar. Is it a question of pure incompetence that maybe the people that we have as prosecutors are either incompetent, not qualified, or I don't know? But how should we reflect on this in the bigger scheme of things, that there seems to be so much failure in this matter?
and that's what I'm alluding to, is that when it comes to sexual assault, there just is failure across the board. Because even when one of, I forget who this MP was, who actually went at pains to describe exactly what it is that you're talking about, the failures. But she was going towards alluding to the failures of the ways in which the courts in and of itself handle victims. And so there is a lot of re-offending and re-traumatizing of victims that comes in through the court systems, not only through the prosecution, but also with the defense as well. So the legal system actually as a whole. And so that incompetence from the prosecutors also forms part of that trauma and that re-traumatization that the victims are also going through. So absolutely, I will agree that in that instance, the NPA failed to protect the victims. But when we look at the ways in which rape is tried in this country, you can see that the victim is the one that is actually put on trial and not the person who is being charged with the crime. That is also just something that I've seen happen time and time again within the legal system, is that there are people who will re-victimize the victim. So asking questions such as, what were you wearing? How much were you drinking at night? That does not mean that you were that somebody was supposed to have that kind of agency to abuse you. Yet because of the ways in which our society is, and I always go back to this, because the ways in which our society in this country wholly disrespects women and does not see the value in them. And this was research. This was done by research in this country that says so. That the ways, the attitudes, and that sort of surface levelness of disrespect and violence needs to be addressed, because it then creeps up into our police system. It creeps up into our magistrate system, where we see that we have people even within the court system themselves harassing people. And I've witnessed this firsthand myself, going with a friend who wanted to get a protection order because she was being victimized and wanting to get that protection order, and then a magistrate literally harassing her while she was going to get a protection order against the violent harassment that she was receiving. So do you see that? Do you understand that there is such a rot? There is such a rot, and we know where the fish rots. It rots from the head. It rots from the head. So absolutely, the justice, I am not only going to blame Shamila, but I do understand the criticisms, and I do understand why it is that people want her to fall on her sword. I get it. 100% I get it. But I will not want to contribute onto that whether or not she should, because I believe that people should make that decision for themselves. What I want to make sure that people understand is that they look at this also holistically, that it is not just the NPA, it is the justice cluster as a whole that needs to make sure that they actually sit and think about, how did we contribute to the ways in which this case, the outcome came of this case? How did we contribute when it comes to making sure that sexual assault victims are supported? Because at the end of the day, they represent the people, and the people are suffering.
And just finally, Ayanda, if I may, how do we get it right? Can we get it right? Does it require a system overhaul?
It really does. And we need to lead this with the Constitution, because our Constitution is there to protect us, is there to insulate us against these kinds of crimes. And if our society and where we live, making sure that people don't have to fall victim to crime, making sure that people don't have to fall victim to drug use, because they have options within the communities that they live in, so that they can thrive in the places where they live, so that they don't need to leave the Eastern Cape. They don't need to walk 10, 15 kilometers to get to school. They actually have the resources in their communities for them to thrive. That is how we start to change our society. But the problem that I have with MPs is that they will always start to blame game each other within the spaces that they have within, you have parliaments this side, we have the governments this side, we have the legislature this side. These three separate arms of power that we have within our state that is meant to produce a society that is conducive for us to actually grow are not working with one another. And that is the problem, because one is trying to show that we are doing better, and the other one is saying that no, we are the ones who are doing better, and the people are the ones that are or failing at the end of the day through all of this grandstanding. And that is what was annoying me, especially when it came to the Omotoso case, was there was a lot of grandstanding that was taking place. There was no listening to the actual victims of that case who were saying, hear our cries, you are doing something wrong. And on that one, I'll tell them straight up, the arrogance, the sheer arrogance of the NPA is what lost them this case, but also the arrogance of the justice cluster to think that they are doing enough with these growing numbers of gender-based violence in this country. The fact that the Kwena case is not going to be prosecuted is another indictment on the justice cluster as a whole. It shows you how there is just no respect when it comes to investigating crimes of a sexual nature, especially when they involve children, especially when they involve women. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do.
Totally agree with you on that one. Ayanda, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for making time to speak to us. I appreciate your time and your insight.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Ayanda Sishi-Wigzell talking to us there. And again, we still have a long way to go. Success saying that NPA is an embarrassment to South Africa and the state, and incompetence of the institution reflects on Shamila's leadership. We will never get justice for big sharks that rob this country, both corrupt ones or murderers and rapists. Sillo Are, the prosecutor, was paid. Someone who worked closely with the police and the court told me stories. It's easy to buy your freedom if you had money and talk to the right people immediately after being arrested. Wolf, should we dismiss Batohi? No. That woman still has 4 hours of her term office. We don't have 12 million golden handshake. I'm sorry. We'd rather be constructive and ask her to account. Makes sense. Makes sense.